So we finally know what Dune Spice Wars Early Access will cost, the size of the game, as well as the system requirements for this title. Red here, and in this video I'm going to go over the second FAQ that was recently published on Steam, which is likely the last FAQ that we will get before the early access of the game launches next week on April the 26th. Now, I have not gone over this FAQ myself, and it is somewhat a lengthy one, so do bear with me on this one. So as you can see here, I'm on the Steam page, which I will link in the description below if you guys want to check it out yourself, and it does state Dune Spice Wars FAQ Part 2, answering more of the community's most pressing questions. We've got a beautiful artwork from Shiro Games and Funcom, really giving us that feel that this is going to be a fantastic Dune game. And you can see there is one of the harvesters. There is probably Paul and Lady Jessica standing there on the dunes with one of the cities there in the background. You can see multiple smaller cities just there in the far background. And really, like I said, the artwork of this game, or this art itself, looks really, really fantastic. I wouldn't mind actually having a poster of this in my living room because it really looks quite amazing. But it's not, this video is not about the artwork. Going on to the first and most important question, in my opinion, is how much will it cost? The initial price for the game will be $29.99, not actually bad at all. This price could change during early access as we add more features to the game, but we will ensure that we inform players well in advance if any impending price changes. So they already said that once the final version of the game releases, which is approximately end of this year, early 2023, the price will likely change. Will it be $60? I doubt it. It will probably go maybe $39.99, maybe even $49.99, depending on the amount of content that they add to Spice Wars. So you would want to jump in as soon as possible, getting into this $29.99, this early, essentially as it's, as it said, this early access price. Granted, there's going to be probably a lot of issues with this game in early access. Early access games tend to have some issues here and there, as it is, in early access. So the price itself, it is justified for what you're going to get. And I definitely think that $29.99 at the end of the day, when you look back a year from now, for example, and you see that the game is $49.99 or even $59, if it does go up to $60, you'd want to say, if you jumped in at $29.99 and you played a little bit through early access and you really waited for the full release of the game to really jump into this game, at least, even if you want to play the game only when the full release is out, I would say buy the $29.99, then at least you have this game in your Steam library. Then at least when the game launches fully next year, you only paid $29.99 for this game. So definitely not a bad price. Hopefully, they will add a lot of content leading up to the final launch of the game. Now, the next question, what are the system requirements for Dune Spice Wars? Now, the system requirements isn't that high looking at the minimum and recommended, as I'm actually currently running an NVIDIA GTX 1070, so I'm in between the, just under recommended, so I'll probably be able to run this game to medium to high settings. I was hoping that I would be able to really push this game, but who knows, maybe I'll try to run, ultra or whatever settings this game has, and just play a couple of games, see how it performs. If it does, of course, stutter a little bit, and if it does give some problems, then of course I'll just lower some settings. But looking at the recommended, I definitely surpassed the minimum recommended settings, so that's pretty good. But the maximum recommended settings is something I just missed by a little bit. So hopefully this game will still perform pretty good on my system. When does the game release on Steam? What hour can we expect? The game will be released in early access on April the 26th. It's a bit early to give a specific hour right now, but it should be late afternoon in Europe, morning in America. We'll share more concrete details on this closer to release. Now, I'm currently based in Norway, and I believe I am working on April the 26th, so likely I'll only be able to jump into this game late in the evening on April the 26th, or maybe even April the 27th, unfortunately, because I'm working full day on April the 26th. So if it does release in the afternoon by where I'm located, then like I said, I'll be at work, unfortunately, so I won't be able to jump into this game as it goes live. But hopefully I will be able to spend a lot of time on it when I get back from work. I'm definitely going to play this game quite a bit when it releases next week. How big will the download be? The game client should be around 3 gigabytes at release. Sorry, I'm a bit shocked at that 3 gigabyte. 3 gigabyte is insanely small. I mean, if you download a 4K YouTube video that's about 25 to 30 minutes, it can easily be 3 gigabytes or larger. So knowing that this game is going to be 3 gigabytes is quite a surprise. Granted, it is in early access, so of course there's a lot of stuff that they will likely add on, as the game progresses. Like, hopefully this game will get some sort of 4K texture pack later on, close to launch, and of course with multiplayer being added later on with the game and all sorts of features and stuff being fixed. There's probably going to be a few times where you're going to have to re-download the entire client as things progress. But at 3 gigabytes, it is quite surprising. I'm happy for a lot of people that do have, capped data on their internet systems. So, it should take a couple of minutes to download for me. But, I know a lot of people are going to be very happy with this. So this is, again, it's very shocking to see 3 gigabytes because very few games these days are that size, and looking at the scope of Dune Spice Wars, seeing a 3 gigabyte is quite impressive and surprising. Can we pre-download the game on Steam? There are no plans for a preload option at this time, but with the download size being on the smaller side, a preload shouldn't be necessary. That I also feel it's the same because, like they just said, 3 gigabytes is very small. It's like a sometimes Steam or even the Epic Game Store has a update quite sizable. So 3 gigabytes isn't a lot, and with preload, I think one of the reasons they don't want to do preload is because it's early access. So they're just, I don't know, maybe they're afraid some things are going to go wrong, or I'm not really sure. But it's, again, given the size of 3 gigabytes, it's not really an issue. Is this game based on the movie or the books? That is a big question that many people have been asking. So the answer to that is the game is primarily an adaptation, of the books, but many other Dune sources have influenced us in our design, including the board games, comics, card games, and Denis Villeneuve's movie. So there they say board games, because I've said throughout many videos that I've been making that Dune Spice Wars artwork looks a lot like the Dune board games. I've not played it yet. I've seen a lot of reviews on the board games, and I've seen the board games at many local shops, but the art itself looks a lot like the board game. So of course that's the first thing they mentioned. So of course the art took a big inspiration from the board games, and then of course they do say the movie, which was Legendary Studios' movies from last year, part 1 at least. Every stone added to this edifice helps make it grander. I cannot read today. Even if the books obviously remain the seminal works. So, of course, one of the big questions that people keep asking is House Ordos going to be added, because House Ordos was in the original Dune RTS games, but it wasn't in the books. So I am wondering if they're going to add that in future as like maybe DLC, or they already said that they're not going to do microtransactions, and they're not planning on DLC because they want to focus on the core game first. So I do wonder if it's going to be like a free update, or maybe down the line, like a year and a half from now, they will have an expansion which will add, the house like that. The next question is, how many new factions can we expect during early access? Do you expect to add more factions to the game beyond the one already planned? That's what I just spoke about. At least one additional faction is planned during early access, and yes, priorities for early access will change depending on the feedback we receive from the community. From experience, multiplayer will probably be high on the list. That said, we have ideas for many different factions with even more asymmetrical gameplay. That's very interesting, because they say at least one additional faction is planned during early access. So you are going to get one additional faction beyond the 4 that we know of. So I'm not really sure who that will be. Will it be the Bene Gesserit, or will it be the Emperor, or will it be somebody completely different like, House Ordos? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm guessing we're not going to know about that for quite some time, because they're going to focus on early access for now, and then from then we're going to see how things are. Next question. What made you choose the 4 release factions, Atreides, Harkonnen, Fremen, Smugglers, as your base faction? Here we got a good picture of all the factions and all the colors. Out of these 4, I think the one that looks the nicest to me is probably, I would say, I do like the Smugglers quite a bit. I do like the Fremen as well, Atreides, and then Harkonnen, I'd say. The Atreides and Harkonnen are a staple of the universe that pretty much had to be there. For the other 2, Smugglers and Fremen, we wanted something that would feel different both in terms of theme and gameplay. The Fremen are a significant force that is very present and potent in the books, and that has been almost ignored in previous video games. That's very true. We felt their time to shine was overdue. As for the Smugglers, they are also an important part of the Arrakis and provide a good way to explore the universe from a different angle and again, provide unique ways to play the game. So again, they say that, the Fremen and Smugglers were neglected in other games, which, like I said, it is true because we had Harkonnen, Atreides, and Ordos. We had those 3 over and over and over from Dune 2, Dune 2000, Emperor Battle for Dune as well. So we didn't really see much, and I believe there wasn't really much attention put on those factions. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they play out compared to the other 2 factions. And again, curious who the 5th faction is going to be. When will multiplayer be available in Spice Wars? We expect it to be early during the early access, but this will depend on the feedback we get from the community. We will have fine-tuning to do as well as new features to add, and will prioritize all this shortly after the early access release. I keep reading that as EA release, and then I think of EA games, and I think of microtransactions, and then I get angry. So I'm happy that they're going to add multiplayer. Personally, I'm not a big gamer of multiplayer games. The only kind of multiplayer games that I play are games that I can play with friends, like The Division, and I used to play Anthem quite a lot, and games like that where you play in a team, you play missions together. I'm not much of a PvP gamer. It's just a personal preference of mine. So I am curious how the multiplayer is going to be when it comes out. Am I going to play multiplayer of Dune Spice Wars? Absolutely. But it's not a component that I'm going to focus on mainly. I'm more focusing on when they're going to add campaign and story mode and stuff like that. That's what interests me about Dune Spice Wars, not so much multiplayer. Will there be a competitive multiplayer feature? That will be for the community to decide. That will likely be true because, the community of RTS gamers that play multiplayer games do love this kind of game. So when multiplayer is going to release of Dune Spice Wars, the community is probably going to want competitive multiplayer as well. Can we use a gamepad, or is it keyboard and mouse only? Keyboard and mouse only for now. A 4X game has a lot of moving parts and interactions, and gamepad support would require a completely different UI to feel good. So that is one thing also that people were asking, is if this game is going to come to consoles, and I'm guessing they're probably working on the back end on some sort of gamepad compatibility, and once they've reworked the UI a little bit to be compatible with the gamepad, that's likely when we'll see the game being ported to PlayStation and Xbox, because at the moment we don't have many strategy games on current gen consoles. I know Iron Harvest is one of the big ones that released, and that was one of the first ones that released. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Dune Spice Wars is going to make it to consoles. I do think that this game should come to consoles. I think there's a big market for it on consoles. There's a big demand for it on consoles. So if this game, for example, comes to Game Pass on Xbox as well, it's going to get a lot of attention. So we will have to wait and see what they do with this game. Will the game have a tutorial? The game has a tutorial that helps players directly as they play the game. We believe it is better to have an integrated experience than a standalone tutorial, if the game permits it. We feel Dune Spice Wars is accessible enough that an integrated tutorial will work and be a better experience. So how I understand this, we won't have a tutorial mission or two that shows you unit movement, base movement, all that kind of stuff. It'll be more like as you play, it'll say, did you know that if you move your harvester here, or did you know that if you move the ornithopter here, it'll automatically scout unexplored areas or something like that. So it'll have pop-up tutorial messages. So in that way, I don't think it'll have a dedicated tutorial in that sense. They even say that they don't have a dedicated tutorial. It's like they will have an integrated experience and then a standalone tutorial. So you can expect probably a lot of people asking for tutorial videos, and I'm hoping to create a few tutorial videos when the game launches, because I know this is a very complex strategy game, so keep an eye out for those. If you are making a campaign, will it follow the story of the books or be an original story? This is one of the questions that I want to know. We're not there yet, oh man, and we don't know what form it will take, but a narrative campaign would probably have a different story so that there's something new to discover for all players. So that's very interesting, the fact that they initially said that during the live stream, I asked them, will there be like tanks and vehicles in the game? And they said no, because they want to stay true to the lore of the books, and they want to stay true to the books and stuff like that. And the fact that if they say now that if they do have a campaign, they're going to do something new is interesting. So I do wonder what they're going to do with the campaign, because of course, if depending on which faction you play in the campaign, is obviously going to be a different story. Like, for example, if you play Atreides, it's likely going to be that the Atreides campaign follows the story of the books, but if you play a Harkonnen, Fremen, or the smugglers, then of course that's a completely made up campaign. So, because, you know, it cannot really follow the story of the book, because otherwise, you know, you would lose in certain factions. So I'm curious where they would go, and I'm curious specifically about the cutscenes, because the animation and artwork, again, is beautifully done in this game, and I want to see more characters. Like, I want to see characters talk to you on screen. I want them to call back to Dune 2, where your mentor basically stood there and spoke to you. So I want to see the leader stand there and talk to you. Maybe there's even a option where you can interact with them, where you can click and say your response to them is like you don't agree with certain things or something like that, and you can argue with them. I would love to see that kind of interaction with the leaders of the game during cutscenes. So really looking forward to if and when they will add campaigns, and just where they will go with that. Will this game be accessible on Geforce Now? We're actually working to have the game compatible with Geforce Now as we speak. We hope to have this finalized by the time of the early access launch, but if not, very shortly after. I don't use Geforce Now, so hopefully that's good news for people that do use that feature or Geforce Now. Will the game be available on mobile? While we believe Dune Spice Wars is an accessible 4X game, it is still very deep and requires many interfaces and a lot of information that would be challenging to fit on a mobile screen. So for now, at least, there are no plans to bring the game to mobile. Of course, this is a complex game. If they ever have anything mobile related, they will likely do a console port first. So I don't see this coming to mobile soon, if ever at all. How about consoles? Right now, we are 100% focusing on making the best game possible for PC, but we are more than open to looking at the possibility further down the line. So never say never. It'll likely come to consoles, but probably by the end of next year. How many units are available for each house and faction? 5 or 6 depending on the faction. Each with its unique stats and abilities. Dune Spice Wars is a 4X game, and warfare is only one part of the game. With economy, spying, and politics to manage, we didn't want to overwhelm players with 10 plus different units like you would find in a regular RTS game that does only war. That being said, we do have a few ideas for more, and we're excited to get player feedback on that topic. So again, like I said, when I asked them during the live stream, they said no to tanks and vehicles. So I am wondering if they mean this when they say we do have ideas for more. If that does mean like we're going to see the Devastator tank for House Harkonnen and stuff like that. If they're going to bring those kind of vehicles, to the game. I hope they do it, because I do like more options, and I did like the vehicles in the Dune games. So definitely going to keep an eye on that one, but for now, the only units we have in the game is already being confirmed on the Steam pages. Why did you change the gender of Liet Kynes? We feel the gender... let me repeat that. We feel the gender repartition, I really cannot read today, in an otherwise very modern book is an artifact of when it was written. Liet is one of the most modern characters in the books, with messages about the preciousness of resources, building I cannot read today, building a sustainable planet with local communities, and modernizing the messenger only makes the message more powerful. Obviously, we love the book and the characterization of Liet therein, but we also enjoyed the portrayal within the recent movie and how it reimagined the character, and this was something we thought could be an interesting approach to take in Spice Wars. Now, of course, I liked her character in the movie, so I'm guessing to that extent they wanted to stay true to the movie character, because people obviously who are more familiar now to the movie are going to play this game and wonder why Liet Kynes is not, the same character that's portrayed in the movies, because obviously they didn't read the book. So I'm guessing that was also one of the reasons they wanted to, stay true to this character, to what people are familiar with. And I do think that Liet is a very powerful character, and this character was very well portrayed on the screen. So I'm very happy to see Liet look like this in the game, and I've said this in my video when it was revealed that this was the fourth and final faction, that the art and the design of this character is very well done. So again, I do hope that there's some sort of interaction between the player and these characters, that you can say like yes, no, or you can say, but when it comes to the campaign, you can just talk to them a bit more. I want to see them interact more. I want to see them in action more, basically. There are some deviations from the books in the game, such as the use of Kulan caravans and shields. Can you explain these design decisions? Dune Spice Wars is an adaptation. Everything is inspired by the books. Most things are the same or very close, and some get changed because of gameplay or art direction constraints. The shield laser interaction is a good example of something that was not that relevant at a planetary scale, and quite hard to manage when there are many units on a battlefield. So we went for a more high-level perspective of shielded units having higher armor. The Kulan caravans were also invented to bring more variety both visually and from a gameplay standpoint, while still being credible within the universe. So this is, again, I saw on Reddit that some people were questioning this design, and I'm just like, my response is usually just like, the developer is doing, like they say here in the very first line, is an adaptation of Dune, of the book. So let them use some bit more creative freedom. You don't want everything to be, line for line kind of from the book when it comes to a game like this. You want some variation, and it's nice to see some sort of variation in the game. I mean, we've not yet played this game. This game is only coming out next week, so I would say first play the game a bit and then see what you don't like and what you do like. I mean, they do take all of the feedback from the early access into consideration, so just play the game a bit and then, see what you... Maybe they see that these units doesn't even work that well, and then towards the final release of the game, they might redesign them or remove them completely. We're almost done with the QA. There's 2 more questions left. The second last one: do you have plans for any cosmetic options, changing the house color, skins, etc.? Not for now, but we're looking into building a house creation system later on. It is a lot more tricky than it sounds, because we have high definition leaders who would require customization options as well, but we'll try to make it happen during the early access. So that's very interesting, because I know a game like Iron Harvest has essentially seasons. That's, you have to do a certain amount of missions, you have to kill a certain amount of units, and then you unlock certain skins for units. So I do wonder if they're going to implement skins in that sense, like, you have to, for example, kill 5 sandworms, or you have to, ride 5 sandworms, or you have to play 5 matches, or whatever the case is, and then you unlock different skins for different units or even different leaders. That'll be a very interesting way to keep people going to the game. They already confirmed that microtransactions will not be a thing in the game, so don't worry that they're gonna add, you want to play Atreides but you want to have blue, so it's gonna cost you $5. No, they won't do something like that. They already said no microtransactions, so I don't think they will do anything like that. But it's interesting to see what they will do on with this house creation system. That sounds very, very interesting. And the final question: on average, how long will one game last? Does it depend on the faction you have chosen? Depending on your strategy and the chosen difficulty, a game generally lasts from 2 to 3 hours. That is quite a long time. That being said, we're pretty sure that players will find ways to be significantly faster than that, especially once multiplayer is available. So yeah, 2 to 3 hours is quite long for one match, specifically because when this releases in early access, there will only be skirmish games. That's as far as I understand, that's the only kind of mode that will be available. It'll only be, you against the AI. That's it. There's gonna be no multiplayer, no campaign, no co-op, nothing to that extent. It's just you and the AI. So I'm guessing if it's a full game of 4 players, so 4 houses, 4 factions, it'll last 2 to 3 hours. But if it's just you and one other factions in maybe a smaller environment, then maybe it'll last 1 to 2 hours. But I'm guessing this is more of a, because they do say generally last, so I'm guessing they generalize if it is a full game of 4 players. So that is, again, quite a long time, but hopefully there will be quite a few ways where you can basically trick the system, or cheese the system in that sense, to make games a little bit shorter. But hopefully this video has answered quite a bit of questions that you have had on Dune Spice Wars. If it did, and if there is more questions you have on Dune Spice Wars, then let me know in the comments below. And if you're looking forward to Dune Spice Wars, then let me know as well by popping a comment in the section below. And for more Dune content, check out the rest of my channel. And if you're new here, then why not subscribe, because I will have a ton of Dune Spice Wars content next week. Until next time, let me know if you like this video by giving me a thumbs up. If you dislike it, give me a thumbs down so I know for future videos. My name is Frank, I'm the RedTieGuy, and frankly, thank you for watching. Catch you guys in the next video.